everybody, and welcome back. We are doing a Petri dish with a good friend who you've been seeing around a little bit. You're going to see a lot more of him because we are talking about Microsoft 365, and there's no better person that I know of to talk about 5 awesome features that are going to delight your users than Mr. Stephen Rose, who is up in the Seattle area. And how is it going, my man?
We're a little quarantined, so
Yep.
we're all working from home. We're all using Teams, and just getting stuff done. It's actually been really good. It's been interesting because it's not been about the technology. That's been the easiest part of this whole thing, is doing our meetings and doing that. It's actually we're meeting twice a week. Just how are things going? How are you handling? How are you balancing work life? And there's a lot more IMing and texting, and we started just some personal groups to share memes. And I made a Corona playlist on Spotify that I shared, stuff like that. So we realized, like a lot of folks, it's as much about the social connection as it is about collaboration and getting work done. So that's been the easy part. So it's been interesting. And I think as we look at more and more customers going in this direction, things that we need to think about as we do it. So it's been interesting from a business perspective, at least.
Sure. I think, being agile has always been a value of successful businesses, people, and everything else like that. And I think we're in the heart of that, proving whether or not companies truly are agile. But one thing we want to talk about here is there's end user features that don't always make the headlines, right? There's so much stuff coming out of Microsoft in general, Office 365 in general, and Microsoft 365, honestly, across the board. There's just so much coming out. So what I wanted to do here is you actually penned something that I think is great, and we're going to be sharing a lot of, is talking about just 5 features that just effectively are little delighters. And I think that these are great to say, hey, when you have someone come up to you and say, hey, why should we do this? And like, this is where I'm going to start pointing people, because these are really, really cool. And so I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but why don't we just dive in talking about presentations? Is that where you want to start, or that work?
It doesn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, I just did this blog, and I thought, it's great to talk about Teams and the greatness there. But I thought, if you had to go to somebody who was using a different product, or maybe even using Microsoft 365 or Office Pro Plus, et cetera, and said, hey, here are 5 features that are going to change the way that you look at the product, that are going to give you something that you didn't even probably know was in there. That's why I penned the blog, and why we thought we'd do the show today. So yeah, I think starting with presentations is a great way to do it, because I spend a lot of time in there. And let's do this. I'm going to start with, I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to go up to PowerPoint, and I'm going to close that little distracting window. So what I've done, and this is going to do desktop, and I'm going to do some desktop and some web stuff, just because there's some really great features that are in our web versions that aren't in our desktop because of the way it connects to the cloud, the way it uses AI. So I thought it'd be fun to sort of show both. But I'll also give you some real world on why these are such great features. And this is one I was doing the Ignite tour last year, and I was in India. I was in Mumbai, and I was told I speak a little fast sometimes, and although English is a primary language there, sometimes our version of English and the English that's spoken locally can be a little bit different and harder to understand. So I thought, let's turn on one of my favorite features. So what I did was I went to Slideshow, and you can always use subtitles, which will do subtitles in English for you. But what I love is I can go down and I can pick any one of these 36 languages, and I'm going to pick Hindi, which is what I did there. And what's awesome about this feature is anyone can use it. You don't have to start training it or say a whole ton of sentences. You basically turn it on and you start your slideshow. I've even done this with a blank slide. I did an executive briefing for a company out of Japan. I turned this on. And what's interesting is I did this in Amsterdam, so I did it with Dutch, I did it with Swedish, I've done it with Hindi, and every time I've done it, within a few seconds, the audience bursts out laughing and then starts to clap, which tells you that it's working. So all I need to do here is now I go to my presentation mode, I hit present, it's a blank slide, and what we'll see happen here in a few seconds is it says listening, and then we're going to start to see text come up at the bottom, and we can see that this is Hindi and it's what I'm saying. How close is it? Well, let's cancel out and let's just choose English. So so we can
Oh,
actually
yeah,
see
yeah,
how
yeah.
close it comes, because that's always
Sure.
the great test. So I'm going to go back up. Once again, it's going to say listening. And now everything that I say is going to be transcribed in real time and going out to the audience. And they're able to see how accurate this is without having to start speaking oddly or excessively slow. I slow down my pace a touch just because it's important that the computer has a few moments to send that up and go down. But you can see that the accuracy is quite high. And most of my customers have said that this accuracy is within the 85 to 95%. It gets interesting when you get into colloquialisms or
Sure.
things along that line, or words that are unique to English and not to other languages. See, colloquialism or church. I didn't say church, but yes.
The thing I love about this is I know French fairly well, but I'm not fluent in it. Not fluent, I should say. But what's great about this is that if I was watching a presentation in French and they had the subtitles there, it would allow me to still feel engaged, but then have a backup resource to know that I'm getting the information this is really, really cool how quickly this is working.
Yeah, and notice it's working for you. It picked up your voice, your language, and did it without having to take a lot of time to do a switch. And that's what's so impressive about it, as opposed to things like Dragon from years ago and stuff along that line, is how quickly that comes together. So this is an awesome feature. It's so cool for people to check out. If you have, Office Pro Plus, or you have Office 365, you can do this. This also works online or on the desktop.
That's
either
awesome.
one. Just go to slideshow and you'll see always use subtitles and then subtitle settings. The thing to remember is when you're done, you can also pick where they're at. So you can say, I want them on the bottom, on the top, below, above the slides. But make sure that you do turn it off, because all of a sudden you'll go to do a presentation for something else. And all of a sudden words in different languages pop up and it can be rather confusing.
I love that. It's one of those like really tangible, like real world products that you can be like, I can see myself using that tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
I agree. It's super cool. All right, let's go to the web version. And I'm running the first release ring, which means I have features that you can get if your tenant is an early release, but if it's not, you're not going to see it just yet. So one of those things is this little new icon. It looks like this lightning bolt, and that's telling me that I can use Designer on these slides. So I'm going to talk about what Designer is and some really cool ways to use it. So Designer is a feature that allows me, who is not good at working in PowerPoints and making them look pretty. I'm great at getting information down. I'm an IT pro, so I can do screenshots all day long. But making it look pleasant and pretty and nice and good to everybody else is not good. I've spent a lot of money over the years sending presentations to companies like Silverfox and having them pretty it up. And this makes it much easier. So what's nice is here, I'm going to go to, I'm going to click Designer, and we'll see that it gives me a whole bunch of different ideas for templates and things like that. But I can say, for example, Seattle Roadshow, and I can click out, and this is super cool. So now that I've typed that in, so that's my slide. Notice up here, it now says Seattle.
Yep.
And I can go ahead and click that, and I can say, okay, you know what? I'd like a picture of Seattle. I like this blue one, so I'm going to go ahead and click it. And then it's going to say, great, how about if I format that for you and make it look really nice? So I could say, you know what, I kind of like this one. And it will automatically, just like that. It makes it look beautiful and brings it all together. And if I don't like it, I can change that by simply just clicking. So this is awesome. And when you're working with photos, or if I have 5, 6 images on a page, it'll automatically take a look at all those and it'll say, oh, let's group these as a 6, or let's do this one as big and these small, and you can continue to change. Now, this goes beyond photos. So here I've done a list, 5 reasons to use Microsoft 365, and we have, these nice things. So what's great is I can go down here and say, oh, you know what? I'd like this one. And notice it not only grabs it, but it actually grabs icons that work with this. Now, it got a little confused with ease of use. It wasn't really sure, and I got a pill bottle, so no problem. So I can double click, replace your icon, and I can say, you know what, show me all icons. And then I can say, let's see what I do when I do easy. Now, it didn't match anything, so let's do user. Oh, there we go. So I can pick this icon, let's say, and it will.
Just like that.
It didn't do it
Oh,
just
yeah?
like that. Let's try that again. It was being weird. All right, well, let's do here. We'll do the idea light bulb. So there's the idea light bulb, which it did. And for innovation, I can say I don't like that one, and I can switch that, and I find that, oh, that's much better. So it'll switch that over. And then if I change any of these titles, again, it will automatically look through that and do
nice.
that.
It's dynamic. That's cool.
Correct. Yep. And then same here. When I get here, I can say, well, that looks nice. And sometimes it'll say, hey, this is just text and pictures. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to do here since there's no text. This is probably the best way to present this slide. So with other ones, it will take a look and it will certainly go much deeper as it starts to do it and start to organize these photos. So this is a really, really great feature for folks to check out that are looking to make their slides look better and to do some different things. And then each time you change it, you'll notice it will update and say, well, what if we did this in a different color? Or what if we organized it like this? That looks really great.
Yeah, that does.
So yeah, so this is, it's again, super simple, really, really easy, but it's great to be able to do this.
Yeah, I love it. It's easy. It's easy.
Yep.
That's the whole point, right? It's easy.
That is exactly the whole point. So what if we took this idea and brought it over to other applications like Excel? All right.
Now, this one's near and dear to my heart because I use Excel excessively. I love the new, it's called XLOOKUP that was just announced, which because I was a big VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP person. And so I love Excel.
All right. Well, then let's do this. So I'm going to highlight some data here. And again, I'm going to go up to ideas. So the little lightning bolt, and it's going to go here and it's going to analyze all my data and it's going to give me a bunch of ideas. It's going to say, well, you could put together a graph like this, or we could do units by rep or units by cost or by region. And if I click down here, I can actually show all 41. And you can even say, and I love this, unit cost has some outliers. It has some information that is not where expected. And this may be a really great way to show off this data rather than showing, hey, this is really nice. It says, these are spikes. This is a little bit different. And why is this different? So we can click that. All I have to do is just tap and it will pop up over here depending on which one I decide to use. So I can insert it. So I'll say, you know what, I like that one. Let's insert that pivot chart and it will drop it in right here. Now, it also leverages AI. So I can say, how many different regions are there? And it will go and look through all the data. So you can use plain English.
I was going to say, that's plain text English. Like that's awesome.
And there it is. There's my answer. There are 3 regions that we have there.
Neat. Yeah. That really is neat, especially for somebody who has a data set, because this happens frequently where you'll be sent with the data set and they say, hey, let me know what you find in here. And it's an open-ended question for management. And there you go. Look at that was just a couple clicks and said, hey, look, we at least got one thing to go track down.
Yep. And then each time I choose to insert one of these, like I did one show where the rep is Kivel. Here we have, what is our best-selling item? And I can, move these different tabs around. Here's my first one showing my outliers. So what is the most unique? And if I put my cursor over it, it will go ahead and it will tell me exactly what that data is without messing with my original sheet. So it's that combination of using plain English and AI and bringing that together to make it smart.
Fantastic. That really, really is neat.
Let's take a look at Word.
All right, now this is like one of Microsoft's oldest applications, I believe. Word has been around, I want to say, since the dinosaurs, but it's a tried and true. You need to write something, you just go to Word.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could say ideas, we can go to editor. So it'll say, hey, there is an ideas, we're calling it editor here. So notice when I typed in ideas, it immediately brought me to editor. So what it's going to do is it does a lot more than just checking spelling, which is great. It's going to go through and take a look at spelling, grammar, acronyms, clarity, conciseness, the formality of your language, inclusiveness of your language. Are you using terms that aren't good? Punctuation conventions. It'll also look at things like sensitive geopolitical references, where you may be using a term that's out of date or not correct in even vocabulary. Now, this is a blog post that I pulled down, not something that I wrote, but it's saying right now it's at about a 79% readability. It'll take 3 minutes to read, about 5 minutes to speak with 283 distinct words. So let's take a look at grammar. And it says that should be a so with a comma. Anguish is, there you go, misspelled. Her should be a semicolon. Isn't should be aren't. Excellent. So now I'm at 94. For clarity, it's saying was filled. It's kind of an active voice. It's saying you can use this if you want. I'm not really sure how to fix this, but it doesn't seem like it's the right way to do it. And then also, good times will be had by all should really be all will have good times. Now, I understand why they used it as a human being. I agree that's probably the best one, but it doesn't necessarily fit. We'll go to conciseness. I've come to the conclusion. Could be shortened to just say, I have concluded. Perhaps each of us, let's just make it each of us have moments. Really simple? Yeah, it's not really adding anything to the sentence. Choose all instead of all of the pain, laying aside all the pain and anguish. Formality, this one's interesting in saying, you know, contractions sometimes are fine depending on it, but it does take away from the value of your writing. So getting rid of some of these and using the regular language is great. And this is much better than trying to do a find and replace, which is one of those things that a lot of folks do. And then it isn't looking at every instance where that absolutely is the way that you perhaps want to be doing it. We'll go down to inclusiveness. We no longer say bachelor. We use the term unmarried person, which is fine. You can choose. Oh, no, I want bachelor in there, but that's fine. But we can choose unmarried person. And again, same for bachelorette. And a gentleman's agreement, this is one that I actually added, should be changed to the term an unwritten agreement. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. No, this is, I mean, this is, because most people just think of, hey, I'm going to click that little ABC button and I'll do the grammatical things minor. This is really, well, I'm going to say inclusive. Like, it includes like every type of thing you could think of right now to help just generally write better, more coherently, and, you know, get it done faster too.
Yeah, and I think where people are very sensitive as we take a look at diversity and inclusion and how important that is and how it's a company goal now for so many companies to be better at that. This is a great way for me as an individual to say, is my writing inclusive? Am I using terms because I've used them for 20, 30 years that maybe don't sit as well today, that may offend somebody when they were reading it, or if I'm putting together a speech in a meeting, things like that, and how that comes together. So it's pretty key as we start to do this. You know, as we look at this, it's also not only how we write the stuff, but also how we present. So there's one other feature that I really love here in PowerPoint that I also wanted to call out, and that is something called Presentation Coach. So we can type in this word. Notice I spelled presentation wrong because I haven't had enough coffee this morning, but I figured it out. And it will say rehearse with coach. So it'll say, hey, welcome. As you rehearse, we'll give you feedback. It'll show real-time feedback, and it will give me some numerical stats. So I'm going to go ahead and start rehearsing, and I'll make some mistakes here that I know are going to be bad. So I can say, let's see, 5 reasons to use Microsoft 365. Well, and notice it's saying, try not to use too many filler words like security. And if I just read what's on the slide, security, manageability, productivity, ease of use, and innovation, it'll come back to me later and say, don't just read what's on the slide. You want to add more information. You want to add some depth to it. Here's a nice picture. And notice here as I type in somebody's name, again, it's reminding me. So it will go through all of this. It will tell me if I'm going too fast, if I'm going too slow through these. And now I'm here at the end. So I'm going to say, great, escape. And here's what it will show me.
Oh, wow.
It will say, here's the summary. Good job rehearsing. Keep it up. You rehearsed 8 slides. Originality. I avoided reading the slide text aloud, and that's good. I didn't use any sensitive phrases. My pacing was good. My average pace over time, though, shot up. Good pitch variance. So how are you talking, and are you altering your voice as you move through things? And filler. Hey, you're using the word a lot, so try not to use that. And it will even, if you click learn more, it's great. It will give you suggestions. Pause if you need a moment. If you feel nervous, take a breath. So things that you can do to help, you know, as you go through this and understand this, what you can do. And you can print up this feedback. You can save it. You can continue to rehearse it. But I've used this before Ignite, and it was a great way to go through my presentation where I was going through too fast on things that were very familiar to me, not fast enough in other areas, There were a few where I was reading a little too much from the slide and it reminded me, and even some one or two sensitive phrases that I used that it said, hey, maybe don't word it this way, because some folks could be looking at it differently, as English may not be the first language for some of my folks that are in there.
Neat.
Very neat.
Yeah, all right. It really, really is.
Click out of that. And we'll come back to us up on here. So I've just written a blog post on this. I also added in a few other features like the read my emails feature in Outlook, which I love when I'm in the car. It's one of those things that will read it out to me and I can say save that or respond. It will tell me not what time, but it'll say this morning you got 2 emails from, or this one is really long, it's going to take a while to get through it, or this one's all pictures, you should really be looking at this email, not reading it. So if you're a commuter in the morning, it's a really great feature to take a look at.
It's kind of like your own little personalized radio, if you will, of what you need to do.
Yeah. So what are some of your favorite features? And
so I was going to point it out while you were doing it, but I didn't want to interrupt you. They're minor things, but for example, dark mode, which you had enabled on yours, just the ability to have that customization, the ability to say, hey, you know what, it's dark, it's late at night, whatever. I really, really do like the PowerPoint presenter, because I am notorious of making just bad slides, because I just go throw up an idea and I'm going to talk about it. And now with just like 2 clicks, I can do it. But the other thing too that I really like in the Microsoft 365 portfolio, and I know everyone's going to roll their eyes because it's so generic, but is generally speaking just Teams. Teams has done such a good job for me personally, rather than having all these like scatter buckets of like SharePoint drives and documents here or there and messages here where I've sent somebody a file. It's just all in one place, and it has made it knowing that, hey, if I open up Teams, I'm gonna be able to find everything I need. And then the search within Teams has actually done a very good job of being able to, well, surface that information for me. Actually, Microsoft just announced there's 44 million daily users of Teams. Just a phenomenal amount of people using that product.
Yeah. There's 1 or 2 others that I really like that I thought were not quite along that line, but one is the move folder feature in OneDrive. That one's huge for a lot of reasons. So what that does is when you turn that on, it will basically take your desktop, My Docs, and photos, and it will redirect it to OneDrive. Now, what's great is it's seamless to the end user. They don't see anything. Their stuff on their desktop is still there. Their stuff in My Documents is still there. But what's great is, number one, it's now in the cloud, which means you can move back and forth between a Mac, a PC, iOS, Android, any one of those platforms, web, and have access to that anywhere you go. But we also have some security features. So, for example, if a bunch of files start to get written over, it'll say, hey, you might have malware. We've stopped this from happening. We're going to clean up these files and we're going to take care of that. Or the ability to be able to go back to any point in time and restore all those files back. So if you get ransomware at noon on Friday, you can say, take my OneDrive back to 11:30 a.m. and everything, folders, all your files, everything is taken back. So that one, just from a dramatic ease of use and having everything you need important and not having to worry, is it backed up? Do I have the latest version, etc.? I can go to your laptop, Brad, and I can pull that file up and get to it by simply logging in. That's one of those simple ones. And for those folks who have not fully embraced the cloud, that's a really great first start, because that really now says, hey, now my data's in the cloud, so I get the intelligence. I can search from the Windows 10 desktop. I can do all that stuff, which really allows me to be more productive and allows me to better get information from my data. So that would be one of my favorites that didn't quite fit in with the article, but that I think folks should definitely take a look at. And that's available both for consumers and for business users.
And the one other thing I would point out, because I don't think people realize this necessarily enough, is you can also go to just office.com and log in with your account, and you can get access to just a wealth of, I'm looking at it right now. You got Outlook, OneDrive, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Yammer, and the one feature that I've yet to really play around with, but is on my agenda to learn eventually, is the Power Automate platform. I'm very intrigued by this. I'm a huge Excel syntax guy where I can write my macros and do all that stuff. And I know that Power Automate is a natural progression of going upstream from that. And so that is on my agenda to learn here in the near future.
Yeah, we've seen, it's interesting because that platform, when you take a look at things like Flow and Power Automate and things along that line are part of our low code, no code platform. And what we've seen there is some really amazing things. We had one customer who works for a tire company in the UK said, well, this is just a database. So I'm going to write a very simple mobile app that says, this is the product I'm looking for. How many of these do I have? Which stores are they at? And can I have these shifted from store to store? The guy wrote it in about a day and a half, and now everybody's using it across the company because he said, I don't know how to code, but I do know how to say, this is what I want, and here's where to go get it. So what's great is you can go from someone who is a more experienced coder who can really build some amazing things to having almost no code experience at all and being able to build a very basic app that can do some really great things. So the Power Platform is definitely something that folks should definitely take some time and take a look at and start to play with, because you may find yourself going, oh, hey, this solves a problem and we don't need to hire a company, or we don't need to go buy another piece of software. We can do it ourselves. We have the power. We have the power.
We have the power. The power of the user, I think, is the cool way to start thinking about that. Well, Mr. Rose, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. We're going to drop a link down into the description below to get to Steven's post that talks about these features a little bit more in depth, and some things we didn't even talk about today. There's a lot of little delighters just kind of nestled in the weeds of Microsoft 365, and uncovering them, while they do get announced and get headlines on occasion, they don't go away. And so it's important to keep resurfacing these things, because your users will get a significant amount of value. Like the PowerPoint stuff, even the coach or the designer are just, go show those to your accountants. Go see how they make use of it, because they will have a lot of fun with that kind of stuff. So check out all those links down below, everybody. Steven, thank you for taking time to talk with us, and we'll catch everybody else right back here next time.
Happy to do it. Thanks again, and stay safe, everybody.